Ceasefire now!
Ceasefire now!
No peace! No justice! No peace!
Breaking news, guys. Just hours ago, dozens were arrested in San Francisco after a ceasefire protest shut down Bay Bridge. In fact, these pro-Palestinian protesters had no plans on going anywhere. They blocked the bridge and completely shut down any traffic from going by. How do I know that these pro-Palestinian Bay Bridge protesters were not planning on going anywhere? Well, they used their cars to block traffic and then they threw their car keys in the water.
I will say that we were not caught off guard. This was something that we were anticipating happening. We were here within a couple minutes, but they were planned. They worked together. They brought their vehicles to a stop on the freeway, and that got accomplished within seconds. There's vehicles that are abandoned and vehicles that they took their keys and they tossed them into the bay. And so we have to tow those vehicles. We have no other choice. Ultimately, we don't want to open the lanes until it's safe to do so.
Guys, literally, the bridge was effectively shut down for hours. Cars could not pass. You could not enter San Francisco, California whatsoever. In fact, this protest blocked all westbound traffic on the bridge. It's a key commuter route into the city that sees about 260,000 vehicles daily. San Francisco hosts the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum, and the city has seen numerous demonstrations in response to the forum for activists decrying corporate profits, environmental abuses, and of course the Israel-Hamas war. By the way, if you guys are new to the channel, please consider dropping a quick like for the video and consider subscribing to the channel for more news and updates like this. Guys, we have been warned numerous times from the FBI Director Christopher Wray that we should prepare, Americans should prepare for attacks on U.S. soil.
The ongoing war in the Middle East has raised the threat of an attack against Americans in the United States to a whole nother level.
FBI Director Chris.
In fact, earlier, just a few weeks ago, we had received a list of U.S. and Canada demonstrations, protests scheduled in support of Palestine throughout multiple major cities. In fact, just to name a few cities on the list, and as we had indicated before, FBI Director Christopher Wray had warned that there are numerous U.S. cities that should be on high alert. So the list of cities, or I'm just going to give you some of the list of cities that are here on the scheduled demonstration protest list in support of Palestine, as multiple major cities are listed. I'm only going to list a few: Atlanta, Baltimore, Boston, Dallas, Denver, Houston, Los Angeles, New York, Philadelphia, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., Seattle. Now, there are numerous additional cities that I'm not going to list here. I will leave a link for the article in the description down below this video if you want to check it out. This on the backs of what former President Donald Trump said just the other day. And it makes us question, is former President Donald Trump right about World War III? Speaking to supporters recently in Kissimmee, Florida, former President Donald Trump offered the American people what might strike some people as a little bit of a hyperbolic warning, saying, quote, "I make you this promise as your president. I will restore peace through strength. And yes, I am the only one that will prevent World War III because we are very close to World War III." Now, this is coming from former President Donald Trump. What are you guys' thoughts? Are we close to World War III? Is Trump the only president that could take office to prevent us from going into a World War III scenario? Or can the Biden administration keep us safe and avert a World War III situation? Please let me know what you guys think. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now, guys, this is literally these protests taking place across the United States. They're escalating. And this is on the backs of what we just saw yesterday. Ceasefire protests at Democrats' national headquarters literally turned. They went from fairly peaceful to, let's just say, they escalated from there.
People getting thrown down the stairs.
So police and protesters clashed outside of the Democratic Party's national headquarters just yesterday. forcing dozens of lawmakers to be evacuated from the building. Officials said that the pro-Palestinian organizers were calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, and they gathered illegally and violently. The demonstrators were said that they were provoked by police in riot gear, who rushed them without warning. 6 officers were ultimately treated for injuries, and a protester was arrested. Demonstrators said that the policing quickly turned aggressive. So the question now is it the police that caused the aggression and caused the protest to escalate into like a riot fashion, or was it the actual protesters? Now, again, this is what has happened with the pro-Palestinian protesters here. So I want you guys to pay attention here. They're saying that the incident unfolded on the front steps of the Democratic National Committee headquarters in Washington, D.C., where political leaders, including the highest-ranking House Democrat, had gathered for a reception. Chants of ceasefire now from roughly 150 activists outside the event resounded in the hallways. Capitol Police swiftly descended onto the crowd, blocking off the building's entrance and their exit. And there's video footage of this incident appearing to show protesters shouting and screaming as police barrel them in the restraint. So this, again, this situation is escalating, guys. And this is on the backs of the Brooklyn Bridge, which was shut down in New York City not too long ago. We covered that on a previous video. After that, we had ended up seeing a large train station shut down. If you guys are familiar with the Grand Central Station located in Manhattan, not far from Times Square, was literally shut down shortly after. We've seen pro-Palestinian protesters in numbers. We've seen pro-Israel Israeli protesters in numbers. And again, we are seeing these organizations, we're seeing these gatherings increase in frequency across the United States. In fact, Chicago had a number of individuals arrested during the protests as well. So as the Israel-Hamas war rages in Gaza, there's a bitter battle for public opinion flaring up right here in the United States on U.S. soil. And, this is on the backs as angry rallies on many college campuses and disruptive protests at prominent venues in major cities continue to escalate. Among the catalysts are Palestinian and Jewish-led groups that have been active for years in opposing Israeli policies toward the Palestinians and who now demand a ceasefire in Gaza. And it's not just a ceasefire that they're demanding. They're also demanding that the United States stop funding Israel. They have also clashed with pro-Israel groups in the past, and they are again now. By the way, if you guys are new to the channel, please consider dropping a quick like for the video and consider subscribing to the channel for more news and updates like this. This is not necessarily the most positive news, but I do think that you guys truly appreciate being informed and kept abreast of what is going on here in the United States, in our world, which affects us and our families. We need to stay safe. We need to stay prepared. And the only way to do that is to stay informed. So if you appreciate that, please consider subscribing to the channel. These groups have roots in a movement known as the BDS, which calls for the boycott, divestment, and sanction of Israel. That campaign generated some heated rhetoric long before Hamas militants attacked Israel on October 7th, and Israel launched its counteroffensive. Now, groups in those earlier efforts are playing very key roles regarding protesting the latest fighting with actions on campuses, college campuses, guys. College campuses, protests that have led to disruptions on Capitol Hill and at a major train station in Chicago and New York City's Grand Central Station, as I had mentioned to you guys earlier. So it's absolutely crazy what is going on here. Jewish protesters and allies blocked Israeli consulate in Chicago. So in Chicago, they have blocked the Israeli consulate in Chicago, demanding a ceasefire in Gaza. Hundreds of Jewish peace activists and their allies converged at a major train station located in downtown Chicago during rush hour Monday morning, ultimately blocking all the entrances to the Israeli consulate and demanding U.S. support for an Israel ceasefire as battles rage in northern Gaza. Now, a lot of you guys have said, well, what is going on? Is President Biden just simply ignoring these demands, these requests from the public, from the protesters, from the rioters? Well, in my opinion, it looks like President Biden is kind of making suggestions to ceasefire, but not actually putting his foot down. And the thing is as a United States president of the United States, you would think that he could literally force a ceasefire if he decided to do so, because at the end of the day, the United States is funding this thing, right? So if the leader of the country who's providing the funding for the war were to literally forcefully indicate we have to issue a ceasefire right now, what do you think would happen? I think that the ceasefire would happen because they don't want to be cut off. That's period and bottom line. Midwestern Jews and allies traveled to Chicago from states like Iowa, Missouri, Minnesota, Michigan, Indiana, Wisconsin, and Illinois for the demonstrations. Israeli consulate in Chicago is a building connected to the Ogilvy Transportation Center, which is a major commuter rail station. I probably butchered that name, but hopefully you guys can help me out in the comments. Over 100 protesters had blocked over 100 protesters had blocked escalators leading to the consulate. They were arrested for misdemeanor trespassing and escorted out of the building. And that information was not confirmed by Chicago police, who did not immediately provide information on the number and reason for arrests and how many demonstrators actually participated. But let's just say that there was a lot of them. In fact, the fighting was ultimately triggered by this October 7th Israel-Hamas, technically Hamas-Israel surprise attack, right? So ultimately Hamas surprise attacked Israel, and that's ultimately, for those of you guys who haven't been maybe keeping up to speed with how we got here, there was an attack on Israel by Hamas on October 7th. It was a surprise attack. And ultimately, that is what kind of sparked this entire thing here. Advocacy group, Jewish Voice for Peace, led a similar sit in New York City's Grand Central Station on October 27th. So that was another shutdown. That was another protest that kind of escalated. And ultimately, a sea of protesters filled the main concourse during the evening rush hour. Can you imagine that? Ultimately chanting slogans and unfurling banners, demanding a ceasefire as Israel intensifies its bombardment of the Gaza Strip. At least 200 demonstrators were detained by New York City police officers, and more than 300 people were arrested in Washington, D.C. On October 19th. So what we saw just yesterday in Washington, D.C. is literally things kind of like stirring up again. So my goal here, guys, is I want to keep you guys up to date. I want to keep you informed on what's going on in our country, in our society, in our communities. So if you appreciate that, please drop a quick like for the video. Consider subscribing to the channel. And if you want to check out our brand new YouTube channel called Truth Exposed, be sure to do so. There is a link for Truth Exposed in the description of this video down below. I appreciate you guys, and I will see you guys on the next one.